So today we have for this session 3 speakers. Professor Matus from HKST, and then also we have a speaker from South Korea, Professor Hwang from Seoul National University, and then also we have a speaker from Singapore, the Professor Sabrina from Nanyang Technological University. So thank you very much for joining us. And first, I'd like to ask Professor Matus to give her talk. So the floor is yours.
Okay, on my screen share. So a few things as I get started. I'm waiting for my slides. Professor Yarime, my wonderful colleague and next door neighbor in the office, said, "Kira, could you please be on a panel on this?" I'm like, "Okay, great." He's like, "I need you to do 10 minutes of opening remarks." And I was like, that is both simultaneously too much and not enough for this topic, right? Because it's a massive topic. And I will also give full disclosure. I do a bit of work around kind of data-driven policies in AI, but I am often largely coming at it from a sustainability context, because sustainability and innovation is kind of my core area, but that is increasingly intersected with issues around AI governance and data governance, for one thing. And the second thing is I'm a bit of a comparativist. So I'm bringing to this a lot of work on a lot of different sectors, thinking about what that implies for facilitating. This was just working. I may have to stand up and do this over at the, yeah. Okay, I'll have you do it? Okay, so one thing I like to think about when I'm thinking about this kind of intersection of innovation and policy generally is that the government has actually several roles in the system. One is that they have the role of setting policy to support innovation, right? A lot of work on investment in systems and in basic research, subsidies for uptake, all these kinds of classic innovation policy tools and approaches, but also innovations then open up space for policy innovation, that there's a whole world of innovations that help us do policy differently. So smart cities is a great example of this intersection where the technologies behind the smart city allow government and policymakers to imagine policy tools and policy solutions and implementations that would not have been accessible before that technology. And so sometimes it's helpful to separate these two activities a little bit, even though there's very much becomes, especially I would say in this space, an overlap between the two. So obviously, we have these arguments about why governments intervene in innovation, right? That the markets are often necessary but not sufficient for these transitions and for these developments. A lot of barriers to widespread use and uptake, etc. So what does that mean for data-driven innovation? So there's lots of opportunities, right? And so the opportunities involve the huge number of sectors where we can apply this. The potential often touted, I would say, perhaps over-touted in the VC community around productivity, efficiency, quality, sustainability gains. But also in this space, the fact that governments have long been nodal actors. They are actors that collect and disseminate and use information, right? The census is kind of the original big data. We've been doing that for a couple of thousand years. So governments are kind of uniquely placed in this particular area to be both users and developers. Of course, the challenges, are that this broad range of what data-driven innovation could be make it very hard to decide what the policy should be, right? How do you facilitate an innovation platform, right? Because the goal is not data in and of itself. The goal is data systems that allow us to do other really important things. So what are the gaps that policymakers need to be addressing here, right? Is it about collection? Is it about availability? We've heard about these platforms for data, right, that are extremely important. Is it about the products? Is it particular end uses or social goals that we're trying to get to here? Right, a lot of the smart city discussion is, well, the consultants would say smart cities for the sake of smart cities, but we would say smart cities for the sake of sustainability and collective action and engagement and fewer traffic jams and all these sorts of things. Is it about technological capacity and dealing with barriers to uptake and adoption of potentially productivity and quality enhancing technologies, which I'll get to in a second? And so how do you approach this? By need, by sector, by technology? And also, of course, in this space, the government is not just a kind of, putting money into the system or trying to put its resources into the system to get something to happen. it is both a regulator of these technologies and potentially a very large and important user or market for these technologies. So the roles are extremely kind of overlapping here. So of course, you also have many government entities themselves who have data. And by the way, that data isn't usually yet on a pretty platform. Like if you talk to our colleague, Alfred Howard City, he came and talked to my students a couple of years ago, and he was saying, when he went to do his research, he discovered, local city authorities have lots of data. It's in a pile of cardboard boxes in a basement somewhere. Right. And they have neither the time nor the money to put it onto a server and into a platform. Right. It's literally, old school analog. And so you have a lot of these issues that governments have data and they need data, but it's not necessarily where and how it needs to be. So one of my former students who's now graduated and moved on to bigger and better things, Dr. Vishnu Sivarudran Pillai, did a lot of work. We did a lot of work together on AI in the construction industry in India, which is, I think, a country we don't have a huge amount of discussion of in this topic, but it's worth thinking about. You have a space with a rapidly changing technology. Construction is not known for its new technology uptake, but especially due to COVID, there's actually been a much more rapid kind of uptake of various off-the-shelf, data-based, data-intensive technologies, including some AI, in an industry that is notoriously low productivity. Okay, most of this is what we call back-end. So despite, you can go to the trade shows and they'll show you the autonomous bricklaying machine, but the reality is that most of what's happening in the sector is things like BIM, digital twins, things around design, contracting, site management, inventory management, that kind of technology. Much slower is on-site development of things like autonomous construction. And this is several reasons. And I think it's important to think about construction because it's not maybe one of the industries we talk about a lot. In Hong Kong, we do. In Hong Kong, we talk a lot about AI for construction, but it's highly bespoke. So you have a big data problem, okay? Because no two, especially when we start talking about the expensive construction projects, the infrastructure projects that would benefit the most from this technology, everyone is completely different from every other one, right? So even the question of how do you gather data, how are you going to get people to collect the data, how do you get the training data for technologies in this, is potentially very problematic. But of course, once again, if we think about government, many of these projects are in fact government projects, right? So if you want that data, if you can think about how to get it, you probably need the government in on this, thinking about their role in these projects is not just we're building a new subway system, but we're also building that new subway system to start getting the kinds of data we need to turn around and start increasing the productivity of our construction industry. But that's not how I think people are thinking about it right now. The other thing is technological uptake capacity. So as I mentioned, we talk a lot about AI and the future of construction in Hong Kong. We have a fairly advanced framework and a fairly advanced industry, but construction industry growth is going to be massive in places that do not have the degree of kind of technological sophistication that we have here in Hong Kong. So one of the things that Vishnu found doing all this qualitative work is that many of the firms just don't have the ability to really be great users of this technology. They're going to have to kind of use off-the-shelf stuff. And a lot of the contractors in that system are not in a position without some sort of help to be adopters, right? And I think that's important. So one thing we haven't thought about is what is the government role in these sorts of industries to upgrade capacity for uptake of innovations, right? It's not just, hey, can we get it out there, but how do we get it to the firms that would benefit the most, right? So some of it's about capacity, some of it's about the kind of capital outlays you need, some of it's about how you set up contracting to kind of encourage that kind of use in your contracts, right? Because if it's going to cost them money and increase the price, they're not going to win the tender. So, I just flashed this up. This is an innovation systems model I use. And I said, from this construction idea, we can see a few places already where government can have facilitating roles. One is in what I call increasing the knowledge stock. It's how do we use the government to help facilitate data collection? Maybe it's through platforms, maybe it's using its power as both a tenderer and a kind of actual construction entity. Another is this initial adoption question, right? Can you use your role as a government buyer of services to put into that system opportunities or requirements for particular technologies to be integrated or particular approaches to be used, right? Governments can decide how they want to do it. Obviously, there's always rules about this, but it is something that you could consider. And another thing is about this widespread use. How do we roll these things out so they become much more widespread and have that productivity dividend? And I would say this is where, you could look to our friends in agricultural innovation, where we have very nice models of, training, upgrading, ways to help train farmers. The Green Revolution started this, and we still have very effective agricultural outreach. And I know from my other research that has been expanded often into more advanced manufacturing contexts. So we have models out there, but we're perhaps not thinking about it yet quite enough in those terms. So one of the things I think that I saw in this work was that more data and support for more data is not always sufficient for a full technology push kind of approach, right? It's not enough just to make the data and the platforms show up. We have to think about how we expand that. And then the second side is this innovation for policymakers, right? That I shouldn't be there. Government can be an actor throughout the value chain, as I said, right? Governments collect data, they use data, they regulate the data, and they regulate the impacts of data-driven innovations in terms of environment, energy, social aspects, right? This was in Gleb's talk and across others as well, with potential policy goal conflicts arising that have to be managed. But then the question also is that, we also have to deal with which governments, where, and when. Okay, because government, once again, as I have a few of my students in my room, and I ban the use of the government does, because we have lots of actors here. We have different agencies, we have different levels. So how effective are governments as markets themselves? Because one of the things we see, of course, is the uptake of these systems in smart cities, but other uses as well, as the actual kind of users. And I would say we have mixed results. We saw some great e-government work in China, but e-government has a checkered implementation history, right? Some places it's worked really well, some places not as well. Sometimes the promises have been slow to deliver. I think it's getting better. Everyone's been talking about electronic health records for a decade or more now, as a way to get better health data, improve efficiency. And once again, we see a lot of expensive investment, but not always a whole lot of really good actual meeting of policy goals with this. It's still not quite there. Once again, in Hong Kong, we do have the health authority has this data center, but it's very challenging, right? Health data is something the governments with social health systems have a lot of, but of course it has to be protected very carefully. So using it is very challenging and brings up a lot of kind of ethical and regulatory issues, so that even though the government has a lot of capacity here to kind of pull the market in this direction, it's proven to be somewhat challenging. And of course, AI-assisted decision-making, there must be a million academic papers about what can go wrong here. And once again, because do we have the right data, the good data, and do we actually, what do we need and what do we not need? Are we polling essentially for the right technologies from the public perspective? So I know I want to kind of wrap up and leave time for others, but I think that in the case of data-driven innovation, I would say that these roles are very much intertwined, that the government as user, regulator, and facilitator, it overlaps a lot. And so this perhaps is both opportunities, but challenges the discussions about what the policy should be, because those goals, right, of Gleb was talking about his model about stringency of regulation, consumer protection, but at the same time, you want to be creating spaces to develop your domestic, kind of data-driven innovation industries, but also to be providing particular products. These are always challenging, but I think that the entanglement is stronger here than in some other sectors I've looked at. The second thing is high impact versus feasibility. I think there's a challenge between deciding you want to go for the obvious low-hanging fruit and looking for your keys under the lamppost, and thinking more creatively about what actually, like, that's kind of the things that are easily feasible might not be the things that we want to do. And so how do we balance that kind of the challenge between things that might be very high impact with things that, kind of get a lot of hype and investment right now. And so the government's job as a long-term facilitator of a long vision of innovation, and not just the thing that's getting the most kind of coverage from the Financial Times this week, is also a challenge. And once again, I'm not going to go too much into things like blockchain and currencies and things, but I think we saw a little bit of that there. And then I think also the potential to use regulation as a tool. I didn't talk about this too much, but I think for these spaces, regulatory tools can be very important because they give guidelines and guardrails and even playing spaces, right? And this current highly decentralized bottom up with some stringent top down makes it very challenging for innovators to develop products. And it makes it very challenging for governments to pick up those products. And so I think that if we see regulation instinctively as something that is getting in the way, we're perhaps missing the opportunity to use regulation as a way to set important pathways and standards, right? And not just, I mean, some of those are technological standards around things like interoperability and data, data sharing and things like that. And some of them are around ethical standards that we need to kind of keep an eye on, right? We talked about already today about normalization. And I think that better regulatory kind of thinking and approaches will go a long way as well to help create clearer spaces for those facilitation activities and for the innovation to happen. So that is the end of my.
Thank you very much. I think you raised many important questions when we talk about regulation and also at the same time facilitating innovation, at the same time addressing concerns, privacy and security issues. And so we will discuss these after all the presentation. Okay, and then I'd like to invite Professor Junseok Hwang. He's a professor of technology management, economics and policy program at the Seoul National University in South Korea. He's really a leading expert on data-driven innovation, particularly smart cities. So I'm very pleased to have him here today. So Professor Hwang, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Yarime, and for your invitation and friendship, and also your devotion to create also ASEAN community to be actively participating and creating new community for data for policy. And also, I really thank also Dr. Janep Unzin, who in the beginning actually have a very founding role to make this happen. I've been actually in data for policy in 3 years ago, 2019, with Professor Yarime. And I realized that this frontierism community is actually very needed. And also, I think that pioneering effort has been going on. Since then, actually, I come back to Korea. I've been actually trying to build the innovation system around our university, especially in the smart city. And also because innovation system is very important when we are talking about data. Data sharing, and these are in relation to that how those are institutionally and legally and democratized, and then also how that data to be equipped with intellectual capability by human, so that the innovation system, the university's role and researchers' role, and also even business and municipalities' role is very important. So for last 3 years, also NF, now Dr. NF Unzin, and also all the my friend in data for policy, and appreciate for your patience for not being able to contribute to the conference that much, but I actually tried to create some role model how the data for policy or for policy for data can be practiced in Korea or worldwide. So today I'm going to actually give you, for my last 3 years of work, that where I create innovation system, based in Seoul National University and with the Smart City National Project, where we'll build and how the data is used. So I'll try to give you the real case how it is to, and along with our key discussion, what we have, I'll continue that issue, innovation for policy and policy for innovation, that both sides of the dynamics are needed. I'm going to actually outreach that into the theme of smart city, where we need the data for policy, at the same time, policy for data. And then how we approach that, I'll share with you, what we are doing now. So I have a presentation, which I'm using these days. And so let me, this one. Okay, can you see the slide, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah. So because my time is only 10 minutes, I'll make it quick. And so anyway, I try to outreach the smart city with the data for policy or these data-driven innovation as kind of global civilization effort. Because data is only language we can communicate, together, not tied to the natural languages, but we believe these intelligence capability we have is actually allow us. And we as SNU have been actually creating digital transformation expert over last 20 years, and then having more than 80 countries and national leader and expert, the data transformation expert, who are the leader, who can represent data also out there. And based on that human network, like we have in data for policy, I actually envision and persuade our government, our university to create an innovation system as a smart city. The reason I see is university has a very good, important role to solve the problem, which I will say great transformation is needed. I'm not going to talk that much, which we all agree how to change we are looking for. But at the same time, I see the university's role is very important. This will play as a city, university, as agora and platform, and also police, within the city, where the intelligence and new practice has been going on, based on the diversity and based on the also, new innovative, actually, thinking and also leadership. So I realized that the campus we have, or Hong Kong, also Science Technology University, and also UCL, Cambridge and Harvard, and everywhere. The role of university very important for the civilization, especially in the smart city civilization, which is a model for the data-driven innovation. So, I realized then our role of the city and also, and relationship with the university should be different. And then I say that I changed the S to C and then university. So in Korea, I'm kind of like a preacher, talking that we have to create, save. We have to save, right? And then is actually, we have some, the smart city district, we're based on the campus where we will do startup and other kind of pioneering job, and then solving the singularity problem of humankind. And then finally, our solution, it can be applied for the universal city and also city in the universe, like in the moon. The sustainability issue that we're dealing with should be able to solve the problem that how we can civilize the space in the moon. So we actually are now creating that kind of new campus and then collecting researchers and schools and professors within one organization under SNU or with SNU and creating. Now they like a global open innovation network and group project, and also, kind of coordinating with the international organizations such as World Bank. We have the picture, what you see is our new campus, where I have also whole 8th floor as an innovation center where we studied new smart city education. So this new open innovation with the smart campus development is necessary and needed. And then I've been doing that for last 3 years. And thanks for the understanding, my friend in the data for policy, my absence in the community. But anyway, that, some of the, smart city as objects are very common for everyone. But here you see on the bottom two, global and university, that you may not see in any, like city-driven innovation system or city-driven smart city project. But I actually create this flagship that global and university as a kind of very important innovation system where we can nurture data-driven economy and also digital economy in the world. And for that reason that I actually will explain more. For last 3 years, actually in 2020, back after, and we created new department called the Smart City Global Convergence, and well-funded, and then more than 7 million, scholarship and capacity building project, which allows us actually to create also capacity building, not only for Korea and worldwide. And recently also we received ASEAN also Smart City ASEAN Smart City Network was sponsored, and with also ASEAN Korean Cooperation Fund, also which actually support more than 6 million of also capacity building for the ASEAN professional. I believe when we have a data, we should have a good professional, the people and leadership who do able to create the innovation system with a good trust with their neighbor and with the people and within the innovation system. So first thing in the data-driven innovation, we need to educate our leader or frontier and also researcher. And then in that regard, Hong Kong, also University of Science Technology, and also Singaporean National University, and also UCL, and Oxford, all these universities who they preach it that the importance of smart city, very important. So in that regard, that we created new campus and with a new institution with more than 8 department head, and then 30 faculty member who are in, but we have a partner also faculty worldwide, like a Professor Yarime, and then we are building. We institutionalized for that with many also municipality and also global partners such as World Bank and GCF, and also CityNet, and also WIGO, World Smart City Organization, and also Global Institute, and also US government, and also Neo City project in Osceola County in Florida, and also Neom City in Saudi Arabia, and also New Capital Smart City Development, along with a business partnership with Korean government and also Indonesian government. So the reason is, along with that development, a lot of data will be actually produced, and those data need to be also to be useful, for any kind of decision or planning. At the same time, make the best quality of life for the people. Well, I think so in order for us to create a good ecosystem for the data-driven innovation, important thing is still the resource and projection. So you cannot build such kind of capacity without the money. So in any way, not only as a scholarship from the Ministry of Education, but as a probably R&D project, any kind of bond, but which will be connecting research with the education. We all realize the engineering education or even policy education need to be multidisciplinary. At the same time, these cannot be dividable between research and education. So in that regard, that to create a very creative researcher or leader for the future society, we need to create some kind of project where our new leaders should be also trained. At the same time doing the project and solving the problem of the society, where the data actually can be flowing well. So we are under construction that to create such kind of also constructive innovation system that where we will. So we are in the second phase of building this one. Already educational part are done. This color part is actually the one what you see on the top is also landmark tower, which we say World Bank Global Campus, and also which will host a lot of innovation, also institution, data-driven innovation. And on the right side, R&D hub, which will be also data-driven innovation. And Kakao data center will be also have their largest data center, say in Korea, will be within our campus, which will be in the top of the org. And so we have a good data-driven innovation system ecosystem. At the same time, in the bottom line, you see the hospital, university hospital, which will be promoted as a smart medicine. Currently the regulation does not allow us to have a telemedicine, but actually this will be, world new, also global, university hospital where we will practice global medicine with the telemedicine. So one of the reasons is the data sharing is not going, too much other than the academia. So we try to realize open data policy by creating new community. And then where everyone actually has a leader and practice their ownership of the data to be shared with others. So this Global Open Innovation Center, which will be hosted in World Bank campus, will be realized in next 5 to 7 years. So we believe that, and these are the projection we see. So, but out here, that I will introduce new innovation system theory, what I call generative innovation system. Which is named with the GNR, Global Innovation System, National Innovation System, and Regional Innovation, integrated. so that these are all intertwined with the data economy and data-driven innovation, where we can host all the citizenship and data, also citizenship prosperity, by having them too be engaged in the global society at the same time, having much more freedom to be a citizen in both or multiple cities, like being in Hong Kong, China, and being in Siheung in Korea, such as. So these are currently in practice. We university are working not only with the municipality and our government and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where they actually can create a legal fund where Korean can have a dual citizenship, and then at the same time others. And these are possible because our campus in free economic zone, so which are considered to be not only the national boundary in global society, based on the business country. So in that way, I see that the community we are having, which data for policy has been actually bloomed, by the good leadership of UK, and then citizenship has been prospered, through the data for policy, and good leader has been actually recognized. And I think we university are doing that to unify, our community and saving for the future. So I believe, I think that but how this can be intertwined and connected with the city and also data? Well, I think data democracy development, I will say, okay? Why? Data is datum, and datum is the fact. Data is the fact. And this fact, from the imaginary fact or people's fact or what in the reality should be stored, it should not be different. And we are facing the fact, in fact, and data democracy development is that where you start to how to create the innovation system. The beginning, I believe, either it could be data center, but not only data center, city lab. So, city lab is kind of laboratory level of, data collection. It's a different concept from the living lab, and that where you can actually have created this kind of nucleus, to bloom that as an innovation ecosystem for the data driven. And already we successfully finished, and I am also, deeply involved in the leadership of this city lab, which is my floor of our education. This is actually 8th floor of our Seoul Smart City campus, and that is going to be turned to the, let's say, innovation center. So Korea actually made a law on smart city already 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago, and that how the National Innovation Center can be authorized and officialized. So we plan to actually create this one city lab to transform the innovation center. We officially engage all the data as a public and private partnership places, and we have also the budget that support and legal foundation. This should be recommended by the city municipality, the mayor, and the Ministry of Land and Transportation and Infrastructure should authorize based on that recommendation after some examination. Finally, I believe that such kind of innovation center will play very important role and in the smart city as an innovation district. So I think that will be the kind of then the project development and data-driven development, I believe, which is important. Finally, also these developments are not national or regional only, should be global, as you can see. So we actually started our educational program as a global convergence, and our the teaching and majors are also, also using all the smart city portfolio all the world, not only Korean nation. So in Korea, in fact, as of 2023, more than 80 smart city official project is going on. So I have access to all 80 smart city portfolio and action plan and actual business model out of it, but which is not enough. So we are collecting collaboration with many universities in the world, and also inviting all my data for policy friends that were being in partnership with us and then sharing such portfolio, how the data can be good for policy, how we can create a policy good for data and for the data democracy. This is a kind of snapshot picture about our ecosystem in our university, at the same time Seoul Smart City. I'm not going to actually move on too much, but I say data democracy. So I think the citizenship prosperity should be the result of the smart city. And at the same time, and we see that data play a very important role for our good democracy. So in that regard, how to keep up these one, and then I declared that, smart city, generation 3.0. Well, like looking smart city not only as a platform, but the platform that provides service, right? And then for everyone, then I will say, then this dimension actually should incorporate both in the digital twin and the metaverse, where that could be a medium for the, how the data can be interpreted and stored, and also create a new data over, and overcoming any kind of limitation of our physical spaces, but also creating and integrating the spaces of our social humanity. And that is a, so far the data, the digital twin
Professor
we use.
Hwang,
Okay, yeah. So,
could you wrap up,
and then, so this is all of my, I can talk about this 3.0 more, but I think metaverse will and digital twin will be very important, not in the planning stage, but in the data-driven also innovation. So I'll be happy to share more in discussion, but but I think today's discussion would be very, also constructive, for our future collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hwang. And this is such a innovative and exciting initiative in South Korea. And there are a lot of issues you raise with regard to how to facilitate the university as a kind of platform for collaboration and innovation. Thank you very much. And then I'd like to invite Professor Sabrina from Nanyang Technological University. She's also working extensively on those data, particularly for health issues. So I'd like to invite her to give her talk.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so thanks for inviting me to give a presentation on Singapore's use of data and technology in the time of COVID-19. Singapore is a smart nation which uses different types of technology to achieve economic growth and better serve citizens' needs. In today's presentation, I'll talk about how the Singapore government utilized technologies to facilitate the nationwide mass distribution exercises.
Could you make it as a presentation mode?
So in, oh, sorry. Can you see it now?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. So in Singapore, wearing face masks is a public measure to prevent the spread of the virus that causes COVID-19. Starting from 14 April 2020, wearing face masks become compulsory in Singapore. So in the first nationwide mass distribution exercise, a total of 1,500 Singapore Armed Force servicemen were mobilized to pack 5.2 million face masks to be delivered to 1.3 million households in Singapore. So large vans and military vehicles were used by the SAF servicemen to deliver the masks to 89 community centers, CC, and resident committee, RC centers to be collected by the public. So a website called MaskGoWear was built and designed by a team of developers at the Government Technology Agency of Singapore, GovTech for short, in less than 12 hours to allow users to key in their postal code to learn about their respective mask collection points in a timely and accurate manner. Cybersecurity specialists at GovTech carried out penetration testing to ensure that the website would be secure when it went live. So the second nationwide mass distribution exercise, which took place in early April 2020, was similar to the first one. So Singapore residents headed to CCs and RCs to collect a free reusable mask. But when it came to the third round of the nationwide mass distribution exercise is a bit different. So for this round of mass distribution exercise, the government distributed 6 million reusable cloth masks to all Singapore residents through CCs, RCs, and 400 24-hour vending machines. So each vending machine had an attached guide in 4 different languages detailing 3 steps for collection the mask. So staff were also stationed at the vending machines to help members of the public. So the 3 steps were very simple. So the first step was the press of an on-screen button to enter the number of the product column. The second step was a quick scan of one's identity card. So the final step was the collection of face masks. So the entire process took less than 15 seconds. So there was the implementation of temperature taking, as well as cleaning and restocking of restocking face masks at vending machines regularly. So all high touch areas on the vending machines were also treated with self-disinfecting coating, which could last for 3 months. CCTV cameras were connected to all the vending machines to help catch those who may damage the vending machine and those who may use illegally obtained personal information to collect a face mask. So similar to the previous round of mask distribution exercise, so Singapore residents could visit the Masko Wear website to get more information or to check the availability of masks in the vending machine. So Masko Wear had over 5.5 million visits over 3 rounds of nationwide mask distribution. So for the third round of mass distribution exercise, it was also supported by Redeem SG, so which was a mobile application and system developed by Open Government Products, a division under GovTech. So the mobile application allowed the staff to scan residents' identity card when they come to CCs and RC to collect the face mask and record which person had collected the mask. And the Redeem SG system was also integrated into vending machines to track the redemption of masks. So the good things about using vending machines to distribute face masks are that it's very convenient. So compared to the manual collection when residents could only go to CCs and RC to collect face masks from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., the vending machine is a 24-hour one. So basically, so citizens, so they can go down to collect the face mask anytime. So, and then another good thing about using vending machine is that it helps save manpower. So for this round of mass distribution exercise, only 150 SAF servicemen and about 40 military vehicles were involved in transporting the mask to community centers across the country. So the Redeem SG system helped track the record of face mask distribution easily and efficiently. So actually it can reduce the human era, okay, era when previously I think they just use the paperwork, right? So this is more efficient. So because of the benefits brought by the 24-hour vending machine, we can see that in Singapore, the use of vending machines has been used in the subsequent rounds of nationwide mass distribution exercise. Besides, their use were also extended to allow residents to replace trace together token which are not working or running out of battery. So what is a trace together token? So actually it is the digital contact tracing devices, a device developed in Singapore. So vending machine is also used by the government, okay, starting from September last year, to allow residents who receive health risk warning or health risk alerts through SMS notification from Ministry of Health to collect their antigen rapid test kits. So I think so through these case study, so what we can see is that so if technology they are used properly, so they are supposed to bring benefits to citizens, government officials, and relevant stakeholders. So in this case, we can see that when technologies and humans are combined in a suitable manner, together they are able to perform on just a much higher level. So technology should. So in this case, we can also see that technology can complement human labor instead of replacing it. And at the same time, it can free up human beings to focus on works that are more engaging and valuable. And of course, through this case study, we can see that the government use technology, right, to carry out this nationwide mass distribution exercise. And they also make use, okay, of just like website to help citizens to get better decision, okay, informed decision, because at that time we try to avoid crowd, okay, avoid waiting for just like a long time to get the face mask. So that's why with a website that can provide data in an efficient and regular manner, it actually reduces humans' exposure to the virus. Yeah, so that's why I think because Singapore has been is really strive to build a digitally inclusive society. And then here we can see that this is a very good example to see how the government use different types of technology to enable citizens to enjoy the benefit brought by technology. So I think from this case, we can see the principles of inclusiveness, the principles of empowerment are being upheld in this case. So that's the end of my presentation. So if you're interested in knowing about more the government, Singapore government's effort to combat COVID-19 and how Singapore built its smart nation, so please, you're welcome to read my recent publication called Singapore After Lee Kuan Yew. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is very interesting example in the case of Singapore. And yeah, there are many implications, as I mentioned, based upon this the particular case, particularly in the time of the crisis. Okay, we have a relatively limited amount of time for discussion, but perhaps I'd like to start by asking a question with regard to capacity. I think Kira mentioned the capacity is an important issue, and also Professor Hwang mentioned the educational initiative using university as a kind of platform for collaboration with many stakeholders. But then again, what kind of capacities, skills would be important in facilitating such a kind of initiative? So I'd like to ask this question to probably all of you. So maybe Kira can start.
I think there's several different aspects of this capacity. Right? As universities, we're of course always thinking about educating people who are going to go out and do these things and use these things. But if we think about government as user, even the Singaporean government has very high administrative capacity. They're known for this, and they train very well. Not every government has the same capacity to do technology uptake. And in fact, there was a survey done of Australia and Hong Kongers' comfort with the use of AI by government. And the Hong Kongers' big takeaway of the survey last year, I forget who the author was basically that it's not that they don't trust, there's trust issues in the government, but a lot of the issue is they didn't think the government actually had the capacity to use these technologies. And so I think that in terms of, there's both there's like a user capacity problem here. And the problem with user capacity issues is that if the government is one of those users, for example, and they don't have a lot of lots of deep internal capacity, how do they choose things? How do they know how to use the data, et cetera? So getting people in there who have the technological chops is actually a really big challenge, especially at more local level. So I think a lot of work on, I wouldn't call it civil service training, but actually thinking very carefully about what government capacity is broadly in all the different places that these technologies and these data collection elements are coming from in a lot of places is really important, as well as users in the field.
Thank you very much, Professor Hwang.
Okay, well, in terms of capacity, well, I've been thinking not only for all citizens and data for data-driven innovation. But first of all, when we say data-driven, and it seems like we are connecting different intelligence. So collective intelligence or diverticism is very important, during the capacity building. That then multidisciplinary education or training, right? So when we are training semiconductor, let's say engineer, they should be equipped not only for the engineering that, right, but additional level of collective intelligence they should work on. The reality is that when we are building innovation system, there will be a lot of public and private partnership where you will be challenged by different languages and different leadership and different culture. So collectivism very important, collective intelligence very important to be dealt with. The capacity should deal with that one. Second one is also, you need to create a new community. When data-driven, create a different landscape and different governance structure. At the same time, they will create different community. So totally that may challenge the existing governance, and then the leadership should be based on that how would the leader who will be the frontier and communitizing. So in terms of engineering, in terms of architect and other thing. Constructive innovation should be so that not only kind of idea, practice, and pioneerism that requires a lot of strong devotion on it. And I want to say also citizenship. When this is more also in the smart city, but data is the fact, and data is for good for people, and policies for the public welfare. And finally, quality of life is in virtue, and then citizenship, prosperity, inclusivism, and then also that should be inherited, and where also many new leaders actually should be keep with that one. Finally, our assumption about the human capability should be by using AI, or we are creative humanism. So smartist or smartism actually should be done that our generation and that people, and assumption what we have is everyone is smart. And how we create that smartism, and then using AI and other, and autonomous capability. So these 5 areas is actually a core theme of my, also capacity building when we do expert training and also leadership. This should be both in engineering, but in the policy and economics and business people. So I want to say that, very important thing is currently we are in the very beginning stage of data-driven, but we need a good leadership and more than that to be done. Okay, that's it, Professor Yarime.
Thank you very much. Then I'd like to invite Professor Luke. The Singapore is generally considered to be quite having a quite high capacity, particularly on the public sector, for example. But then that to make this data-driven innovation systems work, you also need to have capacity on the side of users and also other stakeholders. So how Singapore approach is trying to address this challenge?
So in Singapore, in general, I mean, people are rather tech savvy. Yeah, so I think because they are no strangers to technology, but yet, I mean, Singapore still has digital divide. But I think if I just use the case of the nationwide mass distribution exercise, what I can tell you is that I think during the process of outbreak communication, when the government tried to tell people that now I try to let you use vending machines, and different types of technology to collect face masks or know about the updated information about the availability of masks, right? So I think they make use of different channels, the traditional channel like TV, right, national just like TV, radio broadcast, and plus the new mass media, right, like gov.sg, and then so YouTube, something like that. I think Facebook, so different platform to deliver knowledge, right, to citizens. So this is one way to build capacity. And I think the government keep repeating, that this is an optional, this is an alternative channel for you to obtain face masks. So I think that is how, because if we use using the concept of 3A, right, the awareness, like acceptance, and then something like so it's about awareness, right? Sometimes you tell people, about the technology, right? People are aware of it, but they may not accept it. So I think here in Singapore is some of the people they was because especially in the case of the face mask distribution, you're asking people to scan their identity card. So this is a kind of personal information, right, rather sensitive. So I think there's still some people that rather stick with the official, the traditional channel by collecting the face mask in person, right? So, but I think on the other hand, the government make use of different channels to communicate with the public. So I'll try to ensure that this is safe. This is secure. So you can see the CCTV. There's also a staff, right, standing next to the vending machine, and they will try to deliver brochure, okay, to citizens. So I think this is how once people's inner fear, okay, they overcome the inner fear, okay, they will become more acceptable to technology. Yeah. And I think for this round of the nationwide phase distribution, mass distribution exercise, we are not talking about using artificial intelligence or something like that, really high tech, but I think vending machine or website or SMS notification is something that people are rather familiar with, right, in their daily life. So this is something not very odd, okay, to them. So that's why this is more acceptable. Yeah, more acceptable. Yeah, so this is why, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to invite the audience to ask a question, but I'm sorry, the time is already up. I'd like to close this session, but there are many issues you mentioned, the speakers mentioned with regard to utilizing these emerging technologies, but then we also need to think about all the capacities on the public sector and also citizens and other stakeholders. So how to create kind of arena where we can facilitate collaboration and then making innovation and then also governing the innovation. So thank you very much for the speakers for their excellent talks and the discussions. Thank you very much.